Hello and welcome to That's Girl Speaks. Today is Friday, January 17th. I'm Amy Beth, also known as the Fat Squirrel on Ravelry, and the Fat Squirrel on Blue Sky. Hi. Thanks for coming over. It's 43 degrees today, so there are channels melted through our road. And so now don't worry about you being safe when you get home. So thanks for coming to visit. Have some tea or some coffee. Although it's 4 o'clock, so I don't know. I might be too late. I'll have to go with the herbal. Oh, my youth of Diet Coke until midnight. Oh. But yeah, like okay, so when you came over last time, I was worried about your driving, so I was like, don't come over, we'll just do this virtually. And so like I not left the house like through that storm that we had, and then we had like another storm shortly thereafter. And so I just didn't. And so I had a therapy appointment yesterday, and I forgot that I needed to allow extra time, because even though the snow happened like, you know, like a week ago almost or something like that, at least like several days. What is time? I forgot to allow extra time for not only like freaking out because, oh no, now I have to parallel park my car. Also have to parallel park my car when there's like 3 inches of compacted snow and ice in the parking spaces. Okay, I say I have to parallel park my car. I'm never parallel parking my car. Don't be silly. But I'm gonna have to like find a place that I don't have to parallel park where it is parallel parking. So you know what that means, right? Yeah, I'm sorry. I was raised in the olden days, and I did learn to drive in a giant car, as we discussed last time. I saw a meme once that said, yeah, I have to go move my car and parallel park it in a space across from a bunch of workmen, and I'm just going to drive it into the sea instead. And I was like, same, sister. Like, I want to be like a really awesome, amazing, like I could back a trailer into a camping spot. Also I can like change a tire. You know, I can't be all things. I mean, I want to be cool and tough, but in those ways specifically. But also I do a lot of other stuff. Anyway, so yeah, but thanks for coming over. I feel like I was going to tell you something, and I'm like kind of like flailing about trying to figure out what it was. But let's just get into it. Shenanigans! So let's get into it. Shenanigans! There are none. But in the winter sometimes I like to do a what you watching. Like, let's not pretend it's just in the winter. It's all. I have no adventures except how I nearly died walking to the therapist because I was running a little bit late, and also forgot to account for the fact that you needed extra time to walk anywhere because, you know, for whatever reason, not everybody can clean off their sidewalks. There are legitimate reasons. And so like I forgot also that I was going to be courting death, and so that I could not walk in any sort of brisk manner because I did a lot of several of the as I was going. But in what you're watching, I have become deeply invested in a YouTube channel. It is produced, hosted, created by Chris Atomic, K-R-I-S Atomic. And she and her partner are folks who lived in London many years. They decide, because of the escalating prices of London property rentals, etc., They have mobile friendly jobs, and they decide what they're going to do is buy a narrowboat and live on a narrowboat. Okay? I'm all in, right? Like just the premise. I am here. People living off-grid, always excited for it. Oh my gosh. So much better. So much more exciting. Her cinematography, so amazing. Y'all, I love the idea of shooting like atmospheric B-roll. Like I have tried so many times. It is not a skill that is innate in my being. I'm sure it's something I could learn, but I find it wildly frustrating every time I try. And so let me just tell you, the visual smorgasbord that is this narrow boating journey, I don't understand. It's amazing. Like, I almost feel jealousy is not the correct word, because I feel like jealousy implies that I don't want you to have something because I want it. No, I want you to have it. I'm so glad you have it. Also, I want it. Like the intense level of seeing, and I know that they both do the video and the stills and stuff, like, so the both people. It seems to be maybe primarily her joint, but there's definitely like collaboration happening. But it is definitely like, to use like an overused phrase, it is like getting a lens into like what they're seeing, what they're experiencing also. But even just the like, the beauty of it is, I literally watch it without knitting. Because I need to see all of the seconds. I need to see all of the seconds. Because sometimes I don't realize that the frosted leaves that are next to the Bracken, whatever, the canal, are the most mesmerizing things ever. Also, how did I not know that swans carry their babies on their backs? How have I lived 46 years? And maybe I did know that somewhere, but I had forgotten. And I have been reintroduced to that amazing thing. So not only that, but also they are delightful and I enjoy their humor muchly. And also the level of Britishness of their speech, delicious. I constantly am now saying mad lads. I have no use for that phrase in my life. There are literally no mad lads anywhere near me. I am looking for reasons to use it. Did I tell my wonky carrots the other day that they are mad lads? Yes, I did. That is not even an appropriate use of that phrase. And it's not of my culture. I enjoy it. So yeah, that's the shenaniganing. So I don't know if you're interested in narrowboats. I don't know if you're interested in beautiful things. I don't know if you're interested in sheep. The amount of sheepery involved is amazing. I'm talking sheep in green pastures. Lambs, in fact. I like to play, what breed is that sheep? If you would just like to be spirited away by the idea of a vast canal system that supports people living on it. What? If you just like to be pulled into that alternate reality. I am not sponsored by these people, but they are chef's kiss. Love them. So yeah, if you're looking for a delightful thing to enjoy through your January and February, I I highly recommend them. Again, Chris Atomic, just delightful. Can I just say, maybe I can't, I did not start with the first episode. I started like with a winter episode where they were like frozen in on the longboat or the narrow boat, because that's basically everything I want. So I think I started there. So it might be better to start, like, at least give yourself one episode that's further in. It's not going to spoil anything more than I already spoiled it. And it might give you like a better feel for like what's going to happen, like what's going to be there, and then like go back. Cause that's what I did. I don't know. Maybe that, just saying, I'm giving you my experience, my journey through their journey. Yeah. Lots of farm shops. The most adorable cat. She is, I'm not a cat person, y'all. She's not just a cat. She's a long-haired cat. I'm here for her. I would fight a bear for her. No question. No doubt. But so yeah, sheep, delightful farm shops, excursions, pubs, just in super fun scenery. There's an episode in which they lose their water cap for like their water reserves. I was holding my breath. The saga to retrieve this cap. I was leaned in, holding my breath. I don't know the last time I watched a multi-million-dollar film in which I was holding my breath. So I doff my cap. So good. Those are my shenanigans. Also, she crochets. I'm just saying. Okay, so let's get in to the crafting. Last time I showed you, or maybe, I don't know, a couple of times ago, I had cast on a new pair of socks. This is Vintage Opal in the Little Prince series of colorways. It's one of these two numbers, because I never remember to actually check which one is the colorway before I start to do this. It's either 7763 or 758, but it's, ta-da! So I just did a 3x1 rib, and I just kitchened the toe this morning. So I'm super pleased. I did these cuffed down with a traditional heel flap and gusset. Again, 3x1 rib. Anything else? No. I use double zeros. I use a 72 stitch sock when I'm doing a fingering weight on double zeros. Yeah, super enjoyable. And I am looking forward to casting on my next pair. I'm really just doing the sock knitting. I have several options for sweater knitting, and I'm just not there for some reason. Who knows? But I also have a finished crochet object. You may remember the Snooty Patootie. A few weeks ago. I never get negative comments on my YouTube, y'all. I am the luckiest. I think if you are ever going to start a YouTube channel and you're wondering how to approach it so maybe you have less like horrid people commenting, I think it's really all about being kind of unhinged. I feel like it's like that advice for like when you're walking down the street and you're sort of like having a fearful moment, where that if you just like adopt some sort of unhingedness, that it will just ne'er-do-wellers. They're ne'er doing well somewhere else now. But I did get one person who was like, I would be embarrassed to have that thing on my head. And I was like, I'm sure you would. I'm not. Are you kidding? I feel like it's giving crafty hobbit all the way. Like I would be standing next to my little round door and putting on my waistcoat and then putting on my woolen jacket and then putting on my like sort of scruffily little fingerless gloves, and then I would be like, oh my goodness, the winds are coming down across Brie. I need something else to keep me warm. And I would be like, oh, the Scoodie, she's here. It is her time. Is it not the most ridiculously wonderful thing? So it's 2 giant granny squares and then a scarf attached. How amazing. I mean, there are many times in my crafting life, or just in my life period, that I think, oh my goodness, my high school self, she would be so humiliated. Also, I think that's a good sign of a life well lived, right? Like I need to remember I need to remember that when I'm being down on myself, is that's probably a good sign that my teenage self would be this is what she would be. She would be. This, I think, is maybe one time that she would be pro, because I sort of like in my high school age, there was sort of like a grunge thrift, like everything sort of like, again, that you might find in your auntie's, like your great aunt's, like musty sort of second bedroom in a closet was suddenly the most exciting thing ever. And as a fat person in high school, like I could not participate in the like thrifting because there was never anything, there was never any clothes period for fat people that were not business casual. So many camp shirts. But there was certainly nothing in the thrifting world. There were no quirky throwbacks to another time that could be pulled across the vastness of my bosom. So I actually think I might have kind of gotten behind this because I was really pro like Big Smith overalls. And I think this would have paired well. So here you go, young me. We're venturing off into the future together. Hold my hand. What? And so I did make, okay, so I guess I should tell you like what the pattern is and stuff. I think you might find that helpful. It's almost like I've done a podcast for over 10 years and maybe I would think to do these things in like a systematic way. Yeah, here we are. This is the Crochet Scoodie pattern, Scoodie. It is by Aver, Averp, like pattern. I purchased it, I want to say from Etsy. I don't know, but it was not from Ravelry. I don't even think it's there. And it is very cute. Hers are all in solids, and I love the look of the solids because you have like the double crochet and the single crochet combo. All of the granny squares I've done in the past have just been the double crochets, but the little single crochet in between allows for like a really fun, she uses white in hers. It sounded very good. So she uses white as her like single crochet pop, and it's so cute. But I did have this Noro that I did want to use up. This is Noro. It's a single ply. It's Curiopatora. I think I've said it differently every time. You know, that's very on brand for me. Kureopatora. They're these sweet little fluffy balls. And I did end up using 3, but in the pattern, I think, well, it's in multiple colors. So like, it's not, I'm not sure. I think though you needed like 1 ball each of color 1, 2, the main colors, and then like a ball of the little accent color. Whatever. I did end up using 3, but I made my scarf wider. And also I made my granny square here a bit bigger. I made it one pattern repeat, so one set of rows bigger than was suggested, because I have a giant head. And it is maybe a little bit deeper than is 100% necessary, but the lovely thing is you can just always, you can give it a little zhuzh, which I think really only adds to the hoppitiness of the vibe. So yeah. I'm taken with myself. Fat vanity. Yeah. And we'll just wear this. I think it goes with my ancient not chambray. What's that? Chamis shirt. It's cold here, y'all. It's like frost on the inside of the window is cold. Come on, bud. So yeah, that's that. And then in sewing, I have a weird project that I finished. I think you remember me showing you my quilt a few times ago that I did with my precious wovens that I got on a trip with friends. And I had intended to use this like super new to me farm batting. It didn't work out. But because I was using that batting, it's actually a little bit smaller than what I normally like for my bed quilt. So I have a queen size bed, and typically a queen size batting is like 90, 95-ish. I really prefer like 98 to 100 because I really like my quilt to like overhang my bed top thing. Like I don't like to see my sheets poking out on the sides of my situation. And I know that lots of people use like a quilt over like a coverlet, so it doesn't matter as much or whatever, they just don't care. I had made this quilt slightly smaller because that was the size of that batting, but it is a little bit smaller than I wanted it to be for my bed. And it felt sort of like a doily on top of my bed, which I did not love. So I kind of like went back and forth about like, oh, maybe if I just buy some sheets that are like sort of closer to the, it's like a kind of a charcoaly is the main color. Maybe if I buy some like darker sheets, it won't be like as, it won't be like as assertive to me to see the sheets popping through. I was like, well, I could put like a coverlet. I was like, no, I'm already too hot. Speaking of which, I'm a little bit crazy. Like I am already too hot. Like I cannot have a quilt and a blanket because I already wake up in the night very warm. Thanks, menopause. You're awesome. So like I was trying to like figure it out, and finally I was like, you know what? I think I need to do some weird something. So what I decided to do was to add a border after the fact. What? I'm serious. I decided to add a border after the fact. So yeah, I'm going to show it to you. Okay, so thank you for being patient because I am just going to handhold this. Yeah. So here's the quilt top, right? Like super pretty. Here's the edge of my quilt right here. And I thought, how am I going to add something on? And like, do I try to make it the same? Do I do something different? And this is what I decided ultimately that I was going to do. I decided that I was going to do like a piano keys border. And I did these. They are 1.5 inch finished by 5 inches finished. So 1.5 inch wide by 5 inches. I did piano keys along the entire border. But how I did it was that I actually made 3 very long very skinny quilts. So they are actually bound on both sides, this little extra border. And so I had already washed my main quilt. So I know I couldn't just attach them to the main quilt because then there would be like a difference in like shrinkage. Right? Nobody needs that. And so, yeah, I decided that I would just make 3 little quilts that were 5 inches by anywhere from 95 to 100 inches, because that's clearly what you do. And yeah, that's what I did. I went ahead and made the quilts, bound them on both sides, washed them. I left one of the short edges unbound so that I could like cut it to length and then just did the binding after the fact, which is, it looks a little bit different here. But I'll deal with it. I'm okay with that. So yeah, I made my very long, very skinny quilts. And then I actually just laid them like underneath of this quilt. I kind of like made their bindings kind of go flush. Like not flush. I butted them up against each other and then just did a top stitching like in the ditch. Gus, not helpful. Did and stitched in the ditch on top of the quilt top. And that's how I attached them. You really can't see it from the wrong side. There's just like stitching right there. Thank you, Gus. Gus really approves of the work I've done. He's appreciative. And so this is what the corner looks like. I just like laid this bottom panel underneath the side panel. Like I didn't try to do any fancy mitering or anything like that. Because again, I knew that I was going to have weird shrinkage that I couldn't exactly account for. Because again, this had already been washed and these sections were unwashed. And so that's what it looks like without my sheets showing. And I feel pretty good about it. Here's Gus being pretty pleased with the quilt situation. He's pretty happy about it. So yeah, I'm actually really pleased about it. When I started thinking about how I was going to tackle this problem, I originally thought I'll do the piano keys because I had more wovens that I did not utilize all of them for the top. And so I thought, okay, I'll do the piano keys. And my original thought was to bind it on all sides with the same fabric that's the background of the quilt, which is also what I bound the quilt with. But I only had like a 1/3 of a yard left that was left over from that background fabric, which was definitely not enough. Because again, I had 280 inches of this like border essentially, and it needed to be bound on both sides. So that was not going to be enough fabric. And in fact, I thought, well, I've got 2 that are very similar. So that was off the table because I was really trying to not buy more fabric. And so I thought, well, I had these wovens that my mom had given me several years ago for Christmas, and 3 of them I really liked with the piano keys that I did, and they were similar enough that I thought, okay, it'll sort of still look sort of patchy, but it won't be like, whoa, that's a different color. And really, like my footbed is like a yard away, like a meter away from where I'm sitting right now, and I do not startlingly notice that one of those fabrics is different than the other. So I used 3 half yards to do the binding. I did the bottom the same, like both. I did each piece. I did the same binding on all 4 sides. So yeah, so that meant that butting them up against each other, because again, that was the original thought, was to like bind it in this background fabric, butt the edges against each other for this new border and the original quilt, ladder stitch them together. I did not like the way that looked. And I thought, well, if I sort of like tuck one of the edges under the original quilt, maybe that'll sort of give it like a layered effect, like where it looks like maybe there's, not that it necessarily looks like there's 2 quilts, but like that kind of is the vibe, right? Like it's the t-shirt under a t-shirt kind of thing. And Yeah, I'm super pleased with how it turned out. I think it's actually pretty darn cute. Yeah, I'm down with it. I used the same kind of batting that I used for that my mom used for the top, because I had some of that in a like throw size that I was able to just like chop up to use for this. And I just quilted. I did all stitch in the ditch on the piano keys, so that's how it's quilted. Bound it, put it through the wash and dry just like I normally would, so that we would get the correct shrinkage. And then I just layered it underneath the quilt top, and I thought I was going to do it by hand, because I thought, oh, this is never gonna go. It went through the machine super no problem at all, because I didn't actually go through all the binding layers. I kind of like, again, I sort of like, almost like how you're nesting your quilt square, like your pieced squares against it, because nested them against each other, so that it kind of, the stitching actually went right next to the layer under, like right next to the binding of that extra layer, of that extra add-on piece of quilt. I don't know that any of this makes any sense, or that you care. But I just feel like I need to share my process in case any of you find yourself in this situation. There's like a 0% chance of that, but whatever. I'm here for you. So yeah, I'm actually really pleased with how it turned out. And it wasn't even, I thought it was going to be kind of a nightmare to try to marry these two pieces together. It was not difficult at all. It was slow. Because I did kind of have to keep, it was like not something you could like easily pin together. So I just put it together as I was stitching. So I just stitched very slowly and kept, again, sort of like nesting those bindings against each other. And now, yeah, my sheets don't show, which makes me really happy. So we did what you watching. Let's do what you reading. In like the fluffy corner, I listened to the Starfall Point trilogy, the first of which is called Witches Get Stuff Done by Molly Harper, and the second of which is called Big Witch Energy. Right? So come on, you're here, right? They were very enjoyable for sort of like cozies, witchies, that kind of level of stuff. Very like, fluffy candy stuff to listen to, but I enjoyed them. And it's certainly not like I think that all of those cozies or whatever this is are all created equal, because they definitely are not. I also experienced at least 2 books in the last week that I really tried to listen to that were cozy mysteries that I was like, you know what? I am not a connoisseur of literature. I don't even consider myself a very good judge of writing, but even I can say this is a bridge too far. And then in nonfiction, I finished Rough Sleepers, which is a book by Tracy Kidder, which I have never read any of his other work, but he is a Pulitzer Prize winner, author of Mountains Beyond Mountains. And so this is Rough Sleepers, Dr. Jim O'Connell's urgent mission to bring healing to homeless people. So here's what the dust jacket tells us. In this inspiring book, Tracy Kidder tells the story of Dr. Jim O'Connell, a gifted man who invented a community of care for a city's unhoused population, including those who sleep on the streets, the Rough Sleepers. After Jim O'Connell graduated from Harvard Medical School and was nearing the end of his residency at Massachusetts General Hospital, the hospital's chief of medicine made a proposal. Would O'Connell defer a prestigious fellowship and spend a year helping to create an organization to bring health care to homeless citizens? Jim took the job because he felt he couldn't refuse, but that year turned into his life's work. Tracy Kidder spent 5 years following Dr. O'Connell, his colleagues, and their patients. In this illuminating book, we travel with O'Connell as he navigates Boston, offering medical care, socks, soup, humor, and friendship to some of the city's most endangered citizens, emphasizing a style of medicine in which patients come first, joined with their providers in what he calls a system of friends. We get to know his patients not as problems, but as human beings in their true complexity, difficult and charming, self-destructive and brave. Much as he did in Mountains Beyond Mountains, Tracy Kidder explores how a small but dedicated group of people have improved and gladdened thousands of lives, first of all by facing one of America's most difficult problems instead of looking away. So I am sort of still digesting how I feel about this book. I thought it was very readable. I thought I was really interested in the doctor described in the book. I was really interested in the health program that's described in the book. I was really interested in the other staff of this medical center. I was interested in the stories of the folks the patients who utilized the center. It was a very sort of like conversational feel. It felt like you were just sort of talking to the author and he was telling you about what was going on versus a drier, like more like highly, like deeply annotated sort of approach to the material. But I think I was sort of thinking, I think I was kind of expecting the latter. And so I'm sort of like unsettled in how I feel about the book because of that. Like, again, I think I went in expecting to learn more about solutions, about ways to help folks, ways to like as a community support folks. I think I was going into it with that expectation, and I shouldn't have, because it really clearly is about this medical system that's supporting the folks. But I think that's sort of why I'm left a little bit like, what do I take away from this book? You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm sort of left with. Because it's dark that the success that they're having with medical outcomes for their patients is because that they're treating them like human beings. And that our American medical system not only doesn't treat unhoused people as human beings, but doesn't treat people as human beings, right? And it's not the fault of caregivers. It's not the fault of doctors. It's no single fault except greed and profiteering. But because again, I understand it's not like I'm shaking my finger at doctors or nurses because they're operating in a system where they have 10 to 15 minutes to deal with a very complex human being. And we all have different things that brought us to the health outcomes that we are currently in. And every body operates a little bit differently than the other ones. Like, they're not such a cookie cutter situation that we've always thought. Like, and just the information that's easily quantifiable on a chart, like height and weight and blood pressure and those things, don't always give us the nuance that we need to really help people have better outcomes. And that seems to be what the approach of this medical system is for the unhoused folks of Boston. And specifically the folks who are, what is the demographic called? But there are like different groups of unhoused people, right? Like, there are people who are just like seasonally unhoused, or people who are couch surfing, like that they have some sort of like network that they operate in, and they might occasionally find themselves without a place to stay. But there are the chronically unhoused folks. There's just like, again, it's so nuanced and complex. But specifically, the main thrust of the book is about the rough sleepers, the people who do not find themselves regularly in shelters, who are chronically unhoused and often are choosing, for one reason or the other, not to sleep in a shelter. And there are lots of reasons that folks would decide not to do that. So yeah, I'm still chewing on it. And not like in a big, oh, the problem is so big and I don't understand. Like, it's not like chewing on it in that way, like in a just more in like a, what do I take away from this what do I take away from this that goes beyond this very specific medical program and what they're doing for their folks? So yeah, like, nothing wrong with the book, nothing wrong with the writing style. I think it was more just, again, me having a different expectation than what was realistic for the book. So, but yeah, that is Rough Sleepers by Tracy Kidder, Dr. Jim O'Connell's urgent mission to bring healing to homeless people. So thanks for staying with me as it gets darker and darker. I continue to deeply appreciate your visits. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for washing, but also thank you so much for watching. And thank you so much to patrons of the podcast and folks who support the podcast in other ways. I'm really grateful for you, and I couldn't do this without you. So blessings upon ye and ye houses. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye.